these explosions from the fireball. So it basically starts a chain reaction. If you kill even like the tiny spider, it's just going to cause a chain reaction. It's going to blow up another one. You can see it's basically like the barber. That's why I love the fireball enchant. Earlier on in the Sorceress, look at that. It's just all these just instantly pop. We're going to grab right on top of the elite. We're going to pop our fireball. And you can see it basically deletes everything super fast. This build is absolutely shredding content. It's a basic attack. Oh my gosh, what the heck is this? This is Archlash 2.0, man. Alright guys, let's go over the build that you saw in the gameplay and the build that was constantly requested while I was live streaming last night. So what's interesting is this build is actually a placeholder for my endgame build, which is essentially a chain lightning sorceress. But just like any other action RPG or any video game, sometimes you cannot play the endgame build immediately. You have to build up to it. You have to maybe run some skills or certain things that are just going to be placeholders for when you actually get that legendary piece of gear, that unique item, or whatever the case may be. So I will also still have the video that I went over pinned down below in case anyone wants to use it kind of as a reference, as well as go over the skill tree. I will also link that for you guys. So starting right off, I want to mention that even when I was playing the game, I mentioned that I still plan to play Hydra Chain Lightning towards the end game, but I need something in the very beginning, and I had a leveling build guide, and I just got unlucky. I didn't get the aspect of the Unbroken Tether with a high roll in addition with the recharging aspect, and that's normal. So if you don't happen to get lucky while you are playing and you don't get those specific powers, you may want to still continue using Archlash. And Archlash is great even towards the end game, as you guys saw. We're only in World Tier 3, but for the most part, the build is still very viable for the end game. And I put together a quick little leveling build guide for anyone that is interested in playing Archlash. You can still basically use this towards the end game. So I showed off a bunch of the aspects here that you may want to select. And you'll see from my gear in the video in a second over here how bad my gear is. I have so many things that aren't even close to what I should be running, and that's because, well, it's just RNG. I didn't get them to drop. That's the luck of the draw. But let's go ahead and go over it, but definitely check the pinned comment because it'll have the stuff that you actually want. Because, for example, right now, and a lot of guys wanted the video, I still happen to have a bad roll on chain lightning. I don't even have chain lightning on my bar. I still happen to have the circle of engulfing flames, and I don't have any good source of burn damage, and that is because we simply didn't get the item that we needed. And that's normal for any action RPG to, again, have things as placeholders. But a lot of you guys wanted the build guide, and it is excellent for leveling. So starting right off, let's go over just really quickly the skill tree, and then I'll go over all the little things in the game. So again, it's an Archlash build, so you want Archlash. Flickering Archlash lets you go really fast, and this is how I move super fast in the gameplay. We're also going to be using Fireball. We don't even use it. I know it's on my bar, but we literally don't need to cast Fireball at all. The reason why we have Fireball as well as Blizzard in terms of the skill tree, in terms of points, is because we need to have Fireball and Blizzard here equipped on the Enchant slot to basically have the smoothest playing experience. The reason why I like this for leveling, I can tune out, I can actually read my Twitch chat, and basically just hold down the button for my attack on a controller and just move in the direction, and the build just deletes content. It is by far one of the best builds in the entire game for leveling with a basic skill, and you can use this in the end game as well. Archlash is really, really awesome. So we're running the enchants just so when we kill stuff, it just happens to have a fireball that explodes, and if the other enemy dies, that will also cause another fireball to spawn on them, and it will also explode. So that's why we are running fireball. So it's excellent for that. It's just a skill where I don't have to maintain or meet a certain requirement or get a lucky hit chance or have all these little, like, you know, things happen after X amount of attacks. It just works every single time. And then how Blizzard enchantment works is it does apply increased damage to, like, let's say frozen enemies, but it just applies a crowd control. So if I have any bonus to chilled, crowd control, whatever, it just works. But it's really just because I don't have to manage this at all. It turns on about 1/3 of the time that we're playing. It's okay. It's not really that required. If you really want to, you can throw it in the Firebolt enchantment, because that just applies a burn, which is actually quite nice to have just for other additional procs, like damage to, let's say, burned enemies, or getting the extra burn so some other condition gets you extra HP or something like that. But for the most part, Fireball is an absolute must for leveling. Leveling with Archlash, Fireball is super awesome. You can even do Chain Lightning Fireball if you happen to get lucky. I, again, didn't get lucky, so I just stuck with the Archlash. So these are the skills that we have invested into. Going back over the skill tree, just put a point into Flame Shield, point into Teleport, and then we can get the Enhanced Teleport. Oh, also another thing, I don't get the last one on Fireball because you just don't have crit, so it's kind of like a wasted point. But if you want to put one in Destructive, that's fine. We don't have a Source of Burn, but if you do have a Source of Burn and you run the Firebolt enchantment, that does work with it. So if you want to do that, by all means, go for it. And then on top of that, we have the Teleport with Enhanced Teleport just for more cooldown, more Glass Cannon, and we got Ice Armor. Then we're getting a Source of Vulnerability with Frost Nova, but we get Vampiric Powers, so we can still apply vulnerability. This just lets you actually freeze the target, but extra vulnerability is always a welcome thing to have in the game. Also, getting extra lucky hit chance over here. You can drop this, it doesn't really matter. Earlier on, you don't really need it. But Mana Shield is a thing if you want to. It's usually on like bosses where I might spam some of my abilities. Like, for example, I might use Blizzard, and that way I can get some extra damage reduction on a boss, but for the most part, I really don't need this. It's kind of completely optional. I just have more skill points, and I don't really have anything that I need to put it into. And then extra protection is great. And for the bottom over here, just Static Discharge, Shocking, just because we're just spamming Archlash. Most of the stuff won't even proc because Archlash got heavily nerfed with the lucky hit chance, but it's just extra skill points. These are definitely super optional. If you want to run something else, by all means, go for it. But I'm just trying to show you guys what you guys wanted, which was the skills that I was using in the gameplay while I was leveling. And then we're running Veer's Mastery, so we get to do some extra damage and actually take a little bit less damage. Now, the big part of this that makes everything viable is actually in the Vampiric powers. And again, I'll go over my inventory in a second, and some of the rolls are pretty bad on pieces of gear. So Metamorphosis is what actually applies the vulnerability, because we're going to actually have vulnerability when we actually do a Vampiric curse. So this is awesome. Undying is how we basically don't die for the most part. Then Moonrise is essentially what makes Archlash super, super strong this season. Is because it gives us, at the level 1, okay, this is only a level 1 Moonrise, it makes it so we get to have it apply on a basic attack. We just get more attack speed and it ramps up. And then upon reaching the maximum stacks, we're going to go into a Vampiric Blood Rage. We get 80% multiplicative basic skill damage and 15% movement speed. And this is awesome because it works well with Ravenous. So more movement speed equals more attack speed. So this is awesome. This is also only level 1, but this can actually be doubled. Most of these numbers can actually be doubled, so these will still scale very well into the late game. And then running Prey on the Weak, and enemies are vulnerable while affected by a Vampiric curse from your other Vampiric powers. So we use Metamorphosis to go through the enemy, and then we actually have Prey on the Weak, apply vulnerability. That's how I'm getting vulnerability, because it was a frequently asked question, and you could prop Frost Nova. The problem with Frost Nova is it has a very long cooldown. Now, what is another awesome tip that I just learned is whatever you have on terms of your boots, you want to try to get attacks reduced evades cooldown by whatever number. This actually works with a Vampiric power, which is insanely good. So we get to not only deal damage to them, but that Vampiric curse will apply, and then they are going to be affected by the vulnerability. So in terms of our pieces of gear, like I said, our pieces of gear are really bad. Make sure you guys check the link, because I'll tell you guys what are the good things to get. I don't happen to have the good things, but for the sake of the video, you guys wanted it, so I'm just here to provide, and it's still like a really good leveling build in general. So on the helmet, ideally you want to try to get maximum life. The rest of the stats, if you can get cooldown reduction, cool, but getting extra resistances this season is not a bad thing to get earlier on. For the later stages, it will more than likely matter for the Uber bosses, but I haven't had really too many problems, even with low resistances in like World Tier 1. But once you get to World Tier 3, I do notice that resistances definitely affect the game a little bit. But you can just get flat like damage reduction as well. That's great to get. But you can see like this one, I'm just grinding Barrier. Disobedience did get buffed, and it goes up to 66%. This is awesome. So if you can get Disobedience on a piece of gear, and I just happen to roll this that has bonus to Fireball levels, it's pretty bad overall because the Fireball enchant does not let the Gloves Illuminator activate the bouncing Fireballs. I wish it did. It would be cool. Sometimes I just push the button because it's kind of cool, and we also get more damage reduction if we spend mana. But for the most part, it's not required at all. It's just because it rolled +3 and it happens to be a sacred item. And I pretty much, at this point, we're still in like what I would consider like the leveling stages because I don't happen to have the awesome rolls for my Chain Lightning Hydra. So I'm progressing towards that. And then we just get basic skills grant us damage reduction. You definitely want to get that on one of your pieces of gear. And then we have teleport, gives us extra movement speed. So the thing that you do want to try to get is you want to get basic skills grant you extra attack speed and put topazes in your weapon and in your offhand if you happen to run a one-handed, and then you want to get basic skill damage. It's a very easy thing to get. So ideally get a two-handed. If you get a one-handed and an offhand, you can put one of the other ones in there, and then you can run like edge masters because you're going to be at maximum resource at most of the time. If I happen to have, you know, a Edge Masters, I would throw an Edge Masters one. I would throw in the one where it gives us bonus damage to maybe against enemies while I have a barrier, because we can apply barrier very easy. But like these things don't do anything, okay? Just so we're clear, the legendary power on Chain Lightning does not do anything. I do not have Chain Lightning in my bar yet. I will want to play it because that's going to be my endgame build. But my amulet just has movement speed because I want to try to go as fast as I possibly can. But yeah, that's going to be the build guide for what I was playing in the gameplay, and as well as what I was leveling up, because again, a lot of you guys asked for, and there it is. And it's still really good. I would still say this is one of the best leveling experiences because it doesn't require any RNG. Some like videos I've watched where it's like, oh, this is how you build something, and it requires you to get something, and you just may not get it. But with this, I mean, there's nothing that is like, you need this in order for this build to work. Most of these things, like the extra attack speed, that's optional. But the vampiric powers, if you want to learn how it works and how to acquire these, to not make this video super long, just check the pinned comment. It'll have all the info that you need. But anyways, that's one of the best leveling builds, which is Archlash, Sorceress with Fireball. Again, if you want to run another Enchant instead of Blizzard, by all means, go for it. But some of these you do have to like manage. You have to like have some sort of condition where the other one, it just activates automatically, and I'm loving it. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, turn the bell, and I'll see you in the next video, which I guess this is kind of like a progression series anyways. This is like my day one like leveling build with Sorceress, and I'll show you guys what it will do in the end game. I'll make an Archlash build, and I'll also still do Chain Lightning Hydra. That's at least my plan. But anyways, catch you in the next one. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Peace out.